welcome. I am thrilled to be here with Jamie Knox. Jamie recently retired from the military after a long career, and I am so curious, excited, thrilled to hear her story. So welcome, Jamie. Thank you for being here today. I know you're in the middle of getting your house ready to sell and moving and all of that. And I'm so grateful that you're taking the time to be here. And so tell me, what's your story? What's your story?
So first I'll start with thanking you for reaching out to me, because I've following you on Facebook too, and thinking, oh, she's a life coach. This is awesome, because
Aw.
I really think that we need more women who can be open and honest to reach out and have, try and build up other women's self-esteem, because I know what it's like not to have self-esteem, right? And then to
Yeah.
overcome all the challenges and barriers and everything that we go through, and put the pressure on ourselves, right? And
Mhm.
I'm tired of being down there, and I am all about inspiring other people.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, all the feelings, all the feelings. And thank you for that, because that is absolutely my intention, is that women listening to this will be inspired, that they will realize that they're worth it, that
Yes.
they can do it.
Yes. And
Yeah.
quit having to have that pressure of what society puts on women today, of
Mhm.
what we should be doing and how we should be doing it, and keeping up with the Joneses and all this other stuff. And I honestly can say throughout, I served 29 years in the military, combined service. I started as a reservist for 6 years, and I transferred to the reg force in 1998, and just coming up on retirement now. But
Wow.
I can honestly say that you the expectations that are put on you to live a certain standard, especially when you have a family, a bigger
Mm.
house, bigger car, and it's all for what, it's for
Mhm.
what. And now I'm trying really hard to become a minimalist, because stuff, it just means nothing,
Mhm.
there's other ways to cherish all the memories instead of keeping all the stuff. So,
Mm.
and despite all of my struggles that I have experienced, and I've gone through many struggles. My most recent one was becoming a hoarder. And
Okay, yeah, I can relate a little bit.
and I took this course, and I paid $100 for it. It was online. It was a pilot program through a couple out of Kingston, and it was called PTSD, but it stands for Put That Stuff Down. And when I first
Oh.
moved to Ottawa, I had just gone through an ugly separation, and really struggled with that, and being a single mother and a new job, new position. And I started accumulating cats, because
Mm.
the kids weren't allowed to have pets, when they were younger. And I grew up with pets, I always had a pet in my home.
Yeah.
And we started with two. And then I said, well, I need one for me. And then out of the blue, I was on Facebook, the Stittsville moms page, and somebody was looking to rehome her cats. And I felt bad because people were totally judging her. And I took in two more, and I said, okay, I'll just foster them. But after 24 hours, I'm like, I can't do it. So all of a sudden, we've gone from no pets for my kids' entire lives to all of a sudden having five cats. And then I picked up a Yorkie 2 years ago. And it's all part of my trauma response, of everything that I have
Mm.
dealt with, and not wanting to get rid of stuff. Or one thing about being in
Yeah.
the military is it's almost like you develop an OCD, obsessive
Mhm.
compulsive. Things have to be in a certain order, and I swear, my poor kids lived in a shrine for a good percentage of their life, where my son would line up his toys and not play with them, and he felt
Mm.
the need to put them back in the box. And I'm just like, no, we're not living like that anymore. We need to,
Yeah.
this is the first place we've lived in where we really lived in our home and enjoyed it.
Oh,
So
wow.
lots of struggles there, even just moving here, and going through everything, and trying to, be a good mother to my children, and providing them with everything that they deserve, and then fighting over, you know, all the financial aspects that come with a separation. And all I can say is that I'm quite proud of how I've raised them. I think they've turned out to
Mm,
be some pretty decent human beings. My daughter has left
mm,
for university, so she's going to school in Abbotsford in the fall, but she's already moved
mhm.
there now. And my son will be with me for another 2 more years. So until
Oh,
he
wow.
graduates. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I love that awareness that the stuff was a trauma response.
Yes.
Did
Yes.
you like, did you have a moment where you're like, oh my gosh, this is what's going on? Or was there like a whisper that was kind of like you're thinking like maybe this is a thing?
So I've always been a very organized person, and I would not go to bed until like the floors were washed, the dishes were put away and everything. But struggling with depression, it was so
Mm,
easy to just fall off that wagon, right? And it's like, no,
yeah.
I will take care of that tomorrow. And then a
Yeah.
week would pass, and then months would pass. And I've just
Yeah.
moved clutter from one area of the house to the next. And it was hard for my kids too, because they, again, used to living a certain way and they wanted to help out, but I didn't want them to touch it
Mm,
because it was my clutter. Right. And I didn't
mm,
want anything to be let go of until I initially
yeah.
saw it. So I really didn't think that I was a hoarder, and there's 7 levels to be a
Mhm,
full-fledged hoarder, and I was at level 2. So when you
mm,
take a look at my house, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I have this stuff. So I was that person that's just going out and buying school paper for the kids, and I literally have a box like this big of paper that I
yeah.
misplace, and then I go out and I buy more paper because I don't know where I put it. It's not a very big place.
I'm I'm laughing with you because
Yes.
I've got some of that too.
So I guess my story, I don't want to sit here and mention names, or
Mm,
just talk about my struggles, because I cannot fully blame somebody else for it, because I
mm,
also have toxic traits that I have
yeah,
for survival. And
yeah.
I recognize that. And, I'm trying to correct those things. I also um, want to inspire other women too, who felt like,
Mm,
who feel like they don't have confidence, because that's how I felt. And sometimes I get so mad at myself for allowing myself to become this person I had no idea who I was anymore.
mm,
Where my world was just spinning. I didn't know like right from left. I was constantly emotional, the mood
yeah,
swings, just in a really bad place.
yeah.
And, finally realizing that, wait a second, this isn't the life I want. This
Mm,
this this isn't healthy. It's actually quite toxic.
mhm,
And the
mhm.
further, like 19 years with one person, there's ups and downs in a relationship, but when I look at it, we started wrong and we ended wrong. So
Mm,
part of closing that chapter of my life is included with my military history, with
mm,
because that was a big part of my chapter. So I want to
yeah,
close it off. And, hard feelings there, whatever, it's still tense. We can't even have a conversation, but that's okay. I'm okay with what has happened now and moving on and just focusing on
mm,
me, because I'm that type of person that is always trying to solve everybody else's problems. And
mm,
in the military, I started as a medical technician. So I earned my paramedic license. I did a few deployments, and then I became a physician assistant. So the military put me through the University of Nebraska. I got a Bachelor of Science in Physician Assistant, and I did that for 6 years. Um, and I found that I was, instead of dealing with my problems at home, I
mm,
was wrapping myself up into patient care, to the point where I was taking their problems home with me and trying to
yeah,
solve them. And not everybody can be saved, right? And if people aren't
yeah,
willing to recognize that they need to do more as opposed to just coming to me for all the answers,
mm,
it definitely took its toll. But I had the opportunity to sail with the Navy for 2 years, 2015 to 2017. And it was the highlight of my career. I have
mm,
never felt so special and treated like a queen, because all of a sudden eh, they called me the doc. So
yeah,
being the physician, you're the right hand person of the doc. So that
yeah,
doctor is online, but you're responsible for 240 sailors lives pretty much, right? So that includes all their healthcare. It was like your little walk-in clinic, and I had a junior med tech that was with me, but I loved every minute of it. And
Mm.
I'm the type of person that gets seasick. So I remember my dad, my
Oh no.
my dad knew this. So when he found
Yeah.
out that I was, just before I passed, or he passed, he was laughing because he's like, "Oh, Jamie's going to get so sick." So my first trip on this ship was to Hawaii, and I was bedridden for the first 3 days. It was horrible,
Mm.
but I woke up hungry, and I just managed to get through it, because when you're focused on other people's healthcare, it was just so easy to not think about the elements in the
Yeah.
sea state, right? So it's like, I got a
Yeah.
responsibility. I need to step up. I need to do my job. So I took that job very seriously. But again, I kind of lost myself because I was just so wrapped up in the work. So
Mm.
I left having lots of good compliments, lots of good friendships that I still keep in
Mhm.
touch with people. But I don't think I would go back to becoming or being a physician assistant. I've had that opportunity to talk to other doctors that are like, "Oh, you should come work for me." But mentally, it was
Mm.
too much. I'm very
Yeah.
empathic, so people
Yeah.
just come and open up, and you hear all kinds of stuff, and it's like,
Yeah.
"Oh my god, how am I going to help this person? What am I going to
Yeah.
do?" So I had to let go, but I walked off the ship, held my head high, and said I knew
Mm.
I did the best I could with the resources I had for the
Mhm.
people I worked for. And, I left happy and content. And
Yeah.
I chose not to carry on as a physician assistant. And I became an administrator for the medical technician trade. So I was their trade
Mm.
advisor. And
Mhm.
I did that for the last 4 years, which was,
Mm.
again, a whole different experience and challenging,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I'm very passionate about helping people. So it was in a different
Yeah.
capacity, right? And again, you're working for an organization that can replace you in a heartbeat. and
Mm.
and I had to really tell myself that I have to let go, because letting go is one of the
Mm.
hardest things that I've had to do with everything, my
Yeah.
whole life. And be able to move on and focus on self-care,
Mm.
because I you know it was always me on the back burner.
Yeah. There's a reason they say we have to put our oxygen mask on first.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how was that on the ship? I'm curious. So you've got, like, on the one hand, you're giving everything to everyone. You're focusing so much on everyone else that you're kind of losing touch with yourself a bit. And on the other hand, you're being treated like a queen,
Yeah, it was
right? So,
probably, yeah, it was probably the biggest ego booster that
mm,
I really needed. But
yeah.
at the same time, I honestly feel that I let it get to my head, because it
Mm,
was like a sense of power, and
mm,
just feeling confident. And I don't think I was overly confident, because,
yeah.
I still had, the courage to understand which was outside of my boundaries when it came to what I
Mm,
could or could not do. You just talk to the doctor, try arrange for follow-up care, et cetera, et cetera. But, I really think it got to my head, but I needed it.
mm.
I
Well, and
needed it.
yeah, and is that a bad thing to actually stand into being able to be a powerful and confident woman?
Yes, exactly. Because up to that point, I had gone through so many struggles in my career where I really was doubting myself,
Mm,
numerous insecurities, and, going home to a home life that wasn't very healthy. And it was like a competition because we were the same
mm,
occupation. And it's just, yeah, I needed that high. And that's what
yeah,
I'll refer to it as, because
yeah,
home wasn't a high. Home
yeah,
was like a
yeah.
really depressive environment. And then
Mhm.
I enjoyed going to work every day. Get up,
Yeah,
hop on that ship, off we'd go to sea for however
yeah.
long. And then, you're there, you're doing your job. And then, you come back to port and hope everything's all sorted out. And you get ready and you do it all over again.
Yeah. Well, and I love that here's this opportunity. So within the context of your life and the challenges, right? And how you mentioned that your home life was not great, you have this opportunity to actually experience yourself in a different way and
Exactly.
see I am more than.
Exactly. And there are times when you're at sea where you actually have, a little bit of time for yourself. So you go sit up on that deck and you start thinking. And I did
Mm.
this. I went down, it's called Operation Carib, and I sailed down to Panama on a ship of about
Mm.
with about 40 sailors. And I did a lot of thinking on that deployment. There was,
Yeah.
knock on wood, there wasn't hardly anything medical urgently I had to deal with. It was more, I was the oldest female on the ship. I gave a lot of hugs, wiped a lot of
Mm.
noses,
Yeah.
kids away from home for the first time.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed the camaraderie that I experienced. But at the
Mm.
same time, I really had time to reflect about what I really wanted in life, and
Mm.
why was I continuing to be in something and thinking that I could change somebody when it's not my job to
Mm.
change them. So that took a long time for me to say, you know what, I can't change this person. They are responsible for
Yeah.
their own healing. And if they don't recognize that they have their own issues
Yeah.
that they have to deal with, you have to let go. Um,
Yeah.
but again, it was hard because it was a control thing. And I
Mm.
had let myself lose control. I felt I had no control of me anymore.
Mm.
And when I had the opportunity to speak up, it was nasty. I became
Mm.
somebody I'm not proud of.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
a lot of hurt and things were said. But at the same time, you know, it helped me realize that I need to speak up for me,
Mm.
because you spend your whole career, and I'm in an occupation where there's more men than women. So not only am I struggling being a woman, I'm also
Mhm.
struggling being an Indigenous woman in the military. So I have a lot to
Mhm.
prove because people think, oh, the only reason she's going up in rank is because of her race and gender. And it's like, not my good work ethic, right?
Right? Like, thank you very much.
Yes. And then you just kind of like brush it off, right? It's like, well, did they really mean that? I kind of think they meant this. And then I get making up excuses for people. And that's not right, right?
Yeah.
They need to, just society needs to change. And the military is really trying hard to do that with, inclusion and diversity. But there's still the old timers out there that are struggling to adapt to those changes, right? Because we have a different generation coming through the military now. And it is definitely different from when I joined.
Mhm. Mhm. Hmm. My, I don't know if you know this, but my dad was career military. So he did
Oh,
the 29 years and we were
yes.
stationed in really lots of places that don't even exist anymore. And,
Yes.
I can remember even him saying that it had changed quite a bit in his time as well. So it's like everything, like us, like life, it is this constant evolution.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I was at the point in my career, it's like I could take the promotion, but do I really want it? Right. Because for me, it
Yeah.
was about the
Yeah.
job and working for the people. And yes, I could have done that in a different aspect, but was it really worth it?
Mhm.
When I'm
Mhm.
sitting here trying to struggle and figure out who I am and what I want to do with my life. And I
Yeah.
honestly feel like I'm 18 again. I don't know what to do. So I joined the military. Right. And went on this big
Yeah.
adventure. I got to see the world.
Yeah. So I'm curious, where are you at in that process of discovering? Because I believe that we are all constantly discovering who we are, right? And that
Yes.
we live into our life and then we shift and we grow and we evolve. And so there's this ongoing opportunity to say, oh, well, who am I now?
I
And
know.
and what would I love? What
Yes,
would I love for this
exactly.
next part of my life? So where are
Exactly.
you at with that?
Still struggling because I'm having a hard time letting go that I'm not 20 years old anymore. And
Mm.
my physical state isn't what it used to be 20 years ago, right? And
I can relate. Yes.
and you wake up and you're like, your joints are sore, and it's like, oh, what happened? I used to be able to do this, right? But I'm trying to
Yeah.
be more gentle on myself, more self
Mm.
care. Um, I was a person that had to get everything done right away before I'd relax. And now I just do
Mm.
something and then I sit down,
Yeah.
and take a break. And if it
Yeah.
doesn't get done today, it'll get done tomorrow. So
Yeah.
a lot of self-care, and really trying to evaluate, that woman from 20 years ago is a different person now. I've
Mhm.
gone through so many transformations, and I
Mhm.
still don't know who I am because I still struggle with trying to relax and turning that hamster off that's going in my head
Yeah.
constantly. And I'm like, that hamster's anorexic. I know he is.
Right. He looks pretty damn good.
Yes, yes. So
Yeah.
I think moving back to Port Hardy will help because it's a small community. Uh, Even rapid speech, like there are certain things that I catch myself doing, where I want to
Mm.
just blurt it all out and I'm talking really fast. And then I'm like, okay, slow down. What's the rush, right? What's the rush? We got all the time in the world to talk about this. So just
Mm.
trying to catch myself with the little things, but I'm still trying to figure out who I am, what I really
Yeah.
like, and, what I really want. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I want to honor and recognize you for
Thank you.
being in that place. And I know that um, it can be challenging to say, I don't know what I want.
Yes.
And I'm discovering who I am. And often, what I have experienced personally, what I see with people I work with is that sometimes we don't know actually what we want.
Hmm.
We don't know. We've never ever learned how to ask ourselves that question, or we've never even listened to that voice that tells us what we want. And maybe we spent much of our life thinking that what we wanted didn't matter, or
Right.
that we weren't worth, we weren't worth having those things.
Yes.
And so knowing that starting with clarity on what you don't want is actually the perfect and right
Yes.
place to be.
Yes.
And that as you lean into, okay, well, I've got some clarity on, I know I don't want this,
Yes.
right? And then even one of the other things I find really, really powerful is starting to develop that relationship with that voice within, that voice for truth, that still small voice, that guidance from your, connection to the infinite, and asking like really simple questions like, would I love coffee or would I love tea?
Yes.
Right? Would I love water? Would I love this? Would I love to have a nap? Would I love so just breaking it down into really small questions.
Hmm.
And then you start to, and when I say you, I mean like everyone, right? Anybody that this resonates for, you start to feel into, oh, that's what that feels like to kind of know what I would like.
Yes, definitely. I've
Yeah.
done a lot of therapy too. I've been in and out for the last 4 years, and I am grateful for my
Yeah.
therapist because she specializes in the trauma that I have experienced in my life. And I
Mm,
find it easy, she's so easy to communicate with and giving me resources, and
mm,
I've really learned a lot from her. So
yeah.
I hope to be able to take that all away. I'll still be in therapy when I get to Port Hardy because
Yeah.
I continuously need it. I know I do.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a huge advocate of therapy.
Yes.
Yes, I have done a lot of work myself.
Yes. And I think,
Yeah.
helping to break the stigma behind mental health, because,
Mm,
I can remember earlier on in my career being in a depressive state, and then I'm told, get your shit together at home, right? As opposed to just
yeah.
saying, hey, what's going on at home? You look troubled, you look
Yeah.
sad. And
Yeah.
so dealing with that all on my own, and I'm in the healthcare profession, but, at the same time, we're not supposed to be sick, right? So
Human,
yes,
right?
human, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So,
Mm,
I look back at things and I thought, how would I do things differently? You know, and I don't know if I would change anything now,
mm,
because I am the person I am today because of all the struggles that I have been through,
yeah.
and overcoming all kinds. Like, I'm a very emotional person. You could
Mhm.
tell me whatever and I'll just start crying because that's just who
Yeah.
I am, right?
Yeah.
So I'm when I get angry too, I get emotional because I'm not
Mm,
one to get angry, right?
mhm, mhm,
But it's happened. And, I just be forgiving, try to really think before I say, and, be a good role model for my kids too, right?
mm,
Because I think putting them through some things, like all the moves, they've experienced their own trauma based on how
yeah.
their dad and I have treated each other. So trying, I got my daughter in therapy too, which is great, but trying to
Mhm.
get her to realize, when you have a disagreement, it doesn't have to result in yelling, and it doesn't
Yeah.
have to involve throwing things or anything like that. You should be able to
Mhm.
agree to disagree, and to be
Mhm.
calm about it and not take everything to
Mhm.
heart. And that's a struggle. It's a struggle with me daily, but at the same time, I'm like, look at her and I'm like, okay, what can I do to help her? So,
Mm.
I again, I think I did a good job raising them. At my
Yeah.
ceremony, they Samira, my daughter, wrote up a really nice letter thanking me.
Mm,
And it was just so touching and heartwarming to know that these words that I feel very passionate about, like compassion and empathy
yeah.
and, being a role model, all this stuff came out in what she wrote. And I was just like, oh my God, my kids,
Mm. I'm feeling like that right now. Yeah. Yeah. And I love that, Jamie, that, we are all, I believe, spiritual beings having a human experience, and we all do the best that we can at our level of awareness.
Yes,
And none of us is perfect, right? And
exactly.
as we know better, as we grow, we can do better.
Yes. There's,
And to be able to do that, there's that opportunity then for forgiveness of
yeah,
ourselves for
exactly.
when we've shown up unskillfully, forgiveness for
Yes.
others.
Exactly. And being able to own up to your mistakes too, right? It's like,
Yeah.
look, I'm sorry I spoke. And I had that problem before I left work. Uh, I was like this different person because my
Mm,
expectations were like, come on, like this is what I expect or what I think you should be doing.
mhm,
And people are saying, Jamie, this is totally out of character for you. I'm like, you're
mm,
right. You're right. It is. So
mm,
calling up the next day and saying, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to act that way. But again, this is just me, you know, I don't want to be an angry person, but I know I've got anger
mhm,
in me that I have to release. So I'm trying to think of
mhm.
other ways to get it to let it out, right? And
Yeah.
not be
Yeah.
a bitch about it because I went
Yeah.
through that period of like Jamie's a real bitch. She went from being so quiet to all of a sudden,
Yeah.
I'm talking and my hands are, flying in the air.
Well, and when you've come from depression,
Yes.
anger is actually an improvement because it's activating your life force
Yes.
energy. It's an activation. And so knowing that, okay, so I'm not depressed, I'm angry, and this is not how I would love to be. And then there is this next step in the evolution of that.
Yes. So I'm
Yeah.
hoping that I'm in that next step. I don't feel depressed anymore, but it's not to say that it's not going to rebound, right? Because it's
Hmm.
just
Hmm.
who I am. So
Yeah.
again, I try to take, two positives for every negative. That has
Mm,
always been my motto. It's like, okay,
mhm.
yes, this sucks, but at the same time, we got this going for us and this going for us. So let's
Yeah.
focus on that, right? Because
Yeah.
it's so easy to go in that spiral
Yeah.
and be negative. And for what? It's just so
Yeah.
toxic and it takes up a lot of your own headspace, which you could use on something else.
Yeah. And in a world of infinite possibilities and infinite potential, right? What we
Yes.
focus on truly grows for us. And
Yes.
so it's not to negate the condition, the circumstance, at the level of fact. Okay, so there's depression happening as an example. And there can be depression and there can be other things,
Yes.
right? And
Like
when we can,
anxiety.
okay, yeah, so there can be depression and anxiety and
Yes.
yeah, right. But and I struggled with depression, major depression,
Right.
most of my life. And so I know what that's like to be in that state, right? Where you wear it. And I don't know if that was
Yes.
your experience, but certainly mine. I'm like wrapped up in it and can't see a way out.
Yes.
And so to be able to even just like lift your head up a little bit and see like, oh,
Yes.
maybe there's something else out there.
Exactly. And I was at that state, where I was completely drowning myself in the
Yeah.
sorrow and there's no hope. And, I've
Yeah.
done my best and I don't think I could
Yeah.
go on anymore. And it's like, give your head a shake, the whole world is waiting for you to come out and shine. And
Oh,
so that's me, trying to
yeah.
build up my own confidence, right? I shouldn't
Yeah.
have to depend on somebody else to boost my own ego. I should be able to get up and say, "Hey, I'm going to kick ass today and that's what I'm going to
Yeah.
do," right? So,
Yeah. Yeah. And that's truly right. Becoming the heroine of your own life, where
yes.
you realize like, okay, I get to choose. I get to
Yes,
choose, and
exactly.
and and not to say, not to negate or minimize the challenges and the kind of elements of life that you've navigated, I've navigated, that people navigate. But within that, we have a choice.
We do.
We have a choice.
We
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. And how
And
oh, sorry, go ahead.
nobody is stuck in one situation. There's always a solution on how
Yeah.
you can come out of this or that. And that's why I love connecting with other women too, right? Because you
Mm.
just don't know what goes on behind closed doors at home
Yeah.
until you open up with somebody. You're like, oh, okay. So I am part of the Ottawa Basketeers, which is an
Mm.
organization that collects baskets of new items for women and children that are
Mm.
fleeing from domestic violence.
Mhm.
So I monitor the Facebook page and I, put up posts, and that's my way of contributing because I taught my kids, you know what? Just because we live a certain standard of living, the couple with the two beautiful kids and the perfect home, it's not always perfect, right?
Mhm.
And we come from all walks of life, and I just, got my kids involved with it. So we would go
Mm.
shopping of what we think that a family might need, and we dolled up the baskets and off they went. And that was very rewarding, but it came to the
Yeah.
point where it's like, I got to do something else now. So that's when
Mm.
I said, okay, if you need somebody to help out with a Facebook page, I'm totally for it. So,
Nice. And how good that feels to give back.
oh, it does. It does.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's, you made a really good point that often we look at other people and we see their highlight reel.
Yes.
And we think that we can have this tendency to think that everybody else has got it figured out and
Yes.
going on, right?
Yes.
And that we're the only one who's struggling, or we're the
Yep.
only one who maybe thinks this way or feels this way, or doesn't know how to, figure stuff out. And so I think it's so important to know that we all struggle at times.
Exactly. Exactly. And it got to the point where I'm used to FaceTiming my mom every day, right? And it
Mm.
got to the point where I was like hiding from my mom because I didn't want her to see how unhappy I was, right? So I
Oh,
started shutting family out, and that's not me, right? And I'm like, what am I
yeah.
doing? I'm sacrificing my family who loves me and values me because I'm too proud to say I'm
Mm.
unhappy, right? and
Yeah.
and what am I going to do about it when my mom has been my biggest supporter? She
Yeah.
has helped me so many times with my kids. She flies out, it's because of COVID, she hasn't flown out, but she's flown out a few times because I've had to go away, and she'll be here for the
Yeah.
kids. So, you know, I wouldn't have been able to have my career without my parents, because
Yeah.
I needed that, backup family plan, and
Yeah.
they always pulled through for us. So,
Mm. And so important, I think, to recognize that for most of us, we have people that love us,
yes,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And
And
that,
not to be afraid to call up
yeah,
somebody and say, I'm struggling. I'm
yeah.
going through this, with and that goes with shame and guilt and everything. And then the tension just builds up, right? So I
Mhm.
just got back from holidays. I went away, and my tension in my neck is gone. And I'm like, this is amazing. So that's me letting go of stuff, right? And
Yeah.
which feels good, but I don't want this to return because
Yeah.
again, I feel like, okay, maybe I should do this, maybe I should do this. And I'm the type of
Mm.
person that will wrap myself up into whatever comes my way. And I'm trying not to be that person anymore because I
Yeah.
want to focus on me. So people are like, are you going
Yeah.
to work after you retire? No, I'm going to focus on me, maybe a couple of
Yeah.
years. And if I
Yeah.
want to, maybe I'll work part time or maybe I won't. I don't
Mm.
know yet. So,
Mm. And how amazing that you have this space and you're giving yourself this space
yes,
to say, okay, this is really my turn, my time to figure out who is Jamie now
yes,
and what does Jamie want for her life.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm curious, what if you could give yourself advice at any point in your life, what would it be?
I think to not be afraid to speak up for yourself
Mm.
because, again, coming from a home where, boys did boy things, girls did girl things, then I joined the military, that was out of the norm. And then the military, you are taught to be a certain way and be
Mm.
respectful of the chain of command. And nobody's going to bite your head off. And I always tell people, if you don't speak your mind, what's the worst they're going to do? Take away your birthday? I said they could have mine. They can't, because if we don't speak up for ourselves or for others,
Mm.
we're never going to be able to change anything. And
Mhm.
again, I'm not going to sugarcoat it either, because
Yeah.
it's honesty is the best thing, right? And I'm the type of person that brings home that guilt, and it's like, oh my god, what, I should have said this, or I should have said that. And it's got
Yeah.
to the point where it's like, you
Yeah.
know what, this is what I think, this is what we should do, and whether they agree with me or not, well, at least I had a chance to voice my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And being at peace with bringing yourself fully into your life.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And I was trying to think, when did I really learn to speak up for myself? And I thought, was it at the warrant officer rank when I was sailing? And I thought, no, no, it wasn't. I was a corporal in Edmonton, and we had gathered up our little group in the cage, we called it, where we housed all our medical gear for the field. And we
Mhm.
were, collaborating with our peers, and we all came up with some ideas, and then they looked at me and said, Jamie, you're going to go present it to the chain of command. I thought, why me? Why me? Right. But it's like they picked me to be their leader. So off I went to this meeting, like all scared, like, oh my God, are they going to accept my ideas? And they did. Right. But it was a team effort. And I'm all about the
Yeah.
team approach, because, being an individual, I could probably say in my early stages of my career, you're continuously trying to prove yourself. It's like,
Mm.
I did this, but
Mhm.
you can't be an I person, and you have to be a we
Yeah.
person, right?
Yeah.
So I really try to promote the team approach now.
Mm.
But I've
Yeah.
had
And
some great mentors in the latter half of my career, which I am extremely grateful for, that I wish I met sooner,
yeah.
because I think, they really were trying to, they knew I had potential when I was really
Mm.
doubting myself, right? So that's when it's like,
Mm.
oh man, I wish I worked for you sooner.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so powerful when someone can hold that knowledge for us, right? And
Yes,
really see us in our potential, in our possibility, in our capacity when maybe we have a hard time seeing it in ourselves.
exactly. And believing in yourself, that's hard. And it's like, oh my God, would I really trust me? Like, doubting myself, that's not good.
Oh. And so what advice or what would you, if you could speak heart to heart with another woman listening to this podcast and whatever, what there's a part of your messages resonating with her, what would you say to her? What would you say to her?
I think if you feel it in your gut that something doesn't feel right, you should
Mm,
say something and do something, because you end up, again, it goes part with that guilt and shame and everything. You carry that for so long, and it
yeah.
weighs so much, and it affects you mentally and physically, right? And
Mhm,
I wouldn't wish some of what I've experienced on anybody, right? But
mhm.
at the same time, we all have our own journeys.
Yeah.
But again, just being true to yourself, for one thing. And you're the only person who can take care of you.
Mm, beautiful. And so is there any information that you would love me to include in the show notes? I can put a link to the Ottawa Basketeers
Oh, that'd be
if you would
nice.
love.
Yes.
Is there anything else
Uh,
that I can share on your behalf with our listeners?
I think that's the only. I used to belong to all kinds of pages, right? And I'm trying to wean
Yeah.
myself off,
Yeah.
especially organizing, because I thought I just needed a little kick to get me going. But in
Yeah.
reality, I had to go through, maybe in denial of what I have experienced trauma
Mm,
wise, and really coming to grip with it and saying, okay, this is what actually happened. You know,
yeah.
over all these years, it just wasn't one incident, it was a bunch of
Yeah.
stuff, right? And just trying to really, God, I kind of a loss for words now.
Yeah. But I love that recognition. And I think that we can all do this when we've experienced trauma. And as a human being, we all have, I believe, various levels of that just by virtue of existing on the planet,
Yes.
that we all deal with it differently.
Yes.
And depending on where we're at, depending on our capacity, depending on our resources or supports, like lots of factors, we may or may not be able to look at it, right? And so we might use these as coping strategies,
Yes.
and that's okay.
Yes.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Jamie, thank you. Yeah, thank you for your vulnerability, your
Yeah.
authenticity, sharing your story. I am so grateful for you and for your courage. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Like I said, when I got the email, I was like, oh my God, you know what? This could be the start of something, or just being able to tell my story and hopefully inspire somebody, you know?
Yeah,
Yes, we all need to support each other and lift each other up. Definitely.
exactly. Yeah. And I believe too, letting other women know that we all struggle at times,
Yeah, exactly.
right?
It's life ain't easy.
It's part of the process. It's part of the process.
I used to think, who would have, like, how come I didn't know that the 40s was going to be so tough, right? Like,
Mm,
just so many life struggles and things that you're trying to overcome. And I'm like, no, 50 is going to be good. You know, 50 is going to be when I have it all together, hopefully.
wah, wah, wah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think,
maybe more together,
yes.
but it's a process, that's for
Yes,
sure.
exactly. And
That's
try
for
not
sure.
to overreact. So when I was away, the toilet up on the second floor leaked and the water drained down my dining room. And I was like, if it doesn't rain, it pours, right? And
Yeah.
I could feel my anxiety going up and like, oh my God, I got to call a plumber. What am I going to do? I'm 3,000 kilometers away from home. And then like somebody had said, you know, what can you do other than call a plumber, right? So
Yeah.
you may as
Yeah.
well not let that stress take
Right?
over your body. And I said,
Yeah.
okay, you're right. I'm going to let it go. I'll
Yeah.
call a plumber, wait and see what
Yeah.
happens. The water's turned off. Got to call insurance. Okay.
Yeah, but just to notice that, that kind of pattern nervous system response,
Yes.
which is to ramp it up,
Yep.
and then to be able to kind of pause and say, okay, well, wait a minute. Oh, okay. Okay, I can like actually take it down a couple notches.
Yes. But I needed help with that because,
Yeah.
again, I'm a single mom. So when I went away, of course, my kids are going to be in the back of my mind. They're self sufficient,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
My son's going to be 16. My daughter, well, she's gone now. She's moved away. And then my pets, because they mean the world to me. They've been great
Yeah.
therapy for the last 4 years, right? So I'm
Yeah.
constantly worrying about something. It's like, no, everything's fine. Just,
Yeah.
try and relax and enjoy yourself. So that was a
Yeah.
bit of a struggle.
Yeah. Yeah. Up until now.
Yes.
Up until now.
Yeah.